Stranger Things. Stranger Things.
What an excellent day for an exorcism.
Hey guys, Dustin here. Welcome to another episode of Horroritis. Today we're talking about Stranger Things. It dropped on Netflix about a week ago, and if you're like me, you binged it like the first day. Except I did one better. We have this room in the basement that's basically just a place to lounge and hang out and talk and stuff. It's got a big open wall, and we were just hanging out when I got home from work, and I was like, Stranger Things dropped like an hour ago, and nobody really wanted to leave the little room. We were all just hanging out and chilling, so I got a projector that we have, and we just kind of set it up and hooked it up to the Wi-Fi, and Stranger Things on the wall. We watched almost the entire season the first day, and then we finished it up the second day. And I tell you what, it's a pretty sweet experience if you've never done that. Just Netflixing on a big blank wall with a projector. It's like having a theater in your own home. And it's the first time we actually used the projector. We've had it for like a year, and just, we were going to get it and use it over the summer, and then we never did. And so now it's just down in our little hangout room in the basement, and I guess it's kind of becoming like a media room. So that's pretty sweet. Anyways, I'm getting way off track, so let's just jump into it. So obviously, if you haven't watched it yet, go watch it. Watch the whole thing. You can do it in a day, 2 days if you need to take a break. Because I'm definitely gonna, get into the spoilers, and if you haven't seen it, then I'm gonna ruin a lot of stuff for you. So go watch it, then come back and watch this. And then tell me in the comments whether you agree with my assessment or not. Okay, so season 1 left off. They beat the Demogorgon. They got Will back from the Upside Down. 11 died, but at the very end we find out that maybe she didn't, because Hopper's leaving Waffles out in the woods. So in the beginning of season 2, we learn that, of course, 11 is alive, and Hopper rescued her from the woods, and she's actually been living with him for a year in secret so that he can protect her. So in the meantime, a new girl named Max moves to town, and she completely destroys Dustin's score on a bunch of arcade games. So Dustin and Lucas pretty much get infatuated with her and kind of stalk her a little bit to try to get her to join their party, which eventually does work. Will's still having flashbacks of the Upside Down, and after he gets his first vision of this season, we find out that they're taking him to the facility where the whole thing started to get him treated, except the facility is no longer run by the people who ran it before. It's actually run by a new group of scientists who are trying to help, or at least they say they're trying to help, and they're headed up by Paul Reiser. Now, if you don't know, this is kind of a throwback to Paul Reiser's character in one of the Alien movies, where he was basically trying to sneak an alien embryo past checkpoints inside of a human. And we kind of get the idea that maybe it's the same type of character, but they don't actually really come out and say it. But you don't really know if you should trust him or not, and that doesn't actually change as the season moves on. So we can probably look forward to seeing him in season 3. So after trick-or-treating, Dustin finds a little lizard creature in his trash can. He decides to take it home and keep it and name it D'Artagnan, after the Fourth Musketeer in the Three Musketeers book. And also he feeds it Three Musketeers candy bars, which it loves. Nancy and Steve break up because Nancy can't keep the secret that they know what happened to Barb. Every week they're going to Barb's parents' house, and they're having dinner with Barb's parents, and they think that Barb ran away or got abducted or something. They have no idea that she's dead, and Nancy and Steve have to keep this terrible secret, and Nancy can't handle it, and she gets mad at Steve because Steve tells her that they can't tell the truth, and so they basically split. At the same time, Nancy gets Jonathan, who is also tired of keeping the secret, and they decide that they're going to basically air this whole thing, so they set out to do that. So after Will's been having visions of the Upside Down, Bob, who's Joyce's boyfriend and doesn't quite know all of the details about what's going on, believes that Will's just having scary dreams. So he tells Will that he had scary dreams once about a clown, and eventually he stood up to the clown in his dreams, told him to go away, and suddenly he was free of the nightmares. So the next time that Will gets into one of his visions of the Upside Down, he's running away from the big monster, and then remembers what Bob told him. He stops, turns around, and yells at the monster to go away, except the monster doesn't go away. The monster goes inside of Will. At the same time, the crops around town, all of the crops around town, are rotting and wilting and just being slimed away, and Hopper has to investigate. And it turns out that whatever's inside of Will, this big monster, is also, in reality, branching out underneath the entire town and creating catacombs and tunnels just full of these vine things that are all connected to the Upside Down. So while Hopper goes to investigate, he actually ends up getting trapped down in the catacombs, and then they have to use Will's knowledge of the thing inside of him, because they have kind of a symbiotic connection, to figure out where Hopper is and then how to rescue him. So at this point, while Hopper's stuck and he gets rescued and they hold him at the facility to make sure that he's not contagious or infected or anything, 11 basically has no idea what's happened to him. So she starts searching around the cabin she's hiding in and finds a box of just different files and stuff, and learns that she actually does have a mother, and her mother was part of these same experiments that she was a part of. And it also, if you remember from the first season, her mother was comatose, so she finds all the information there and goes off to see her mother. When she gets there, she of course sees that her mother is comatose, and she does that thing where it's kind of like in the Upside Down, it's that blank room where she can just kind of connect with people, and she tries to communicate with her mother, and her mother gives her a series of visions that take her back to when she was in the facility. While she's checking out these visions, she notices that at one point in time she was with another little girl who was just a little bit older, and then she decides that she's going to set out to go find this girl. So she tries and finally locates her, and the girl's in Chicago, so 11 runs off to Chicago to meet this girl who also has powers. So back to Nancy and Jonathan, they've compiled some evidence against the facility, and they go out of town to meet a guy named Murray, who is a conspiracy theorist who is trying to help track down what really happened to Barb. Now, they present him with all of the facts and evidence and such, and he decides that there's no way anybody's going to believe this stuff. So what they do is they water it down, change the story a little bit, make it slightly believable, and then mail out copies to all of the news stations. Dustin's pet Dart has grown and evolved and shed its skin and started eating cats and random animals, and eventually turns into what they call a demodog, which is like a demogorgon, but it's in dog form. So Dustin, Steve, Lucas, and Max try to lure in Dart to kill him or whatever to protect people, because now that he's eating bigger things, it's only a matter of time before he starts eating people. So once they lure Dart to where they're at, they find out that there's also a bunch of other demodogs, and it looks like that they're all about to be eaten, except at that very same time, a group of soldiers are going into the catacombs for the Upside Down, and they're trying to destroy it. And this, of course, calls back the demodogs. They run back to the catacombs and basically destroy everything and try to wreck the facility. So while the demodogs are attacking the facility, we've got Hopper, Mike, Will, Joyce, and Bob are all there, along with Dr. Owens, who is played by Paul Reiser. The power gets cut, so they have to get the power back on and try to escape the facility before being eaten by the demodogs. And Bob, who is a computer genius because he works at Radio Shack, and bear in mind that at the time Radio Shack was the nerd place to be, Bob has to go down to the basement, find the breakers, and then reboot the computer system to open the doors and let everybody out. So it looks like everybody's going to make it out, everybody's going to be safe, and then Bob gets eaten by a friggin' demodog, And I'm going to go into this a little bit more in a minute because I have some stuff to say about Bob. So at the same time, Eleven decides that, Chicago is not the place for her and that her home is actually back with Hopper and she wants to be with her friends and family. So she takes a bus back to town and gets there just in time to save the world yet again. She goes down into the mine where the upside down thing is and she basically closes the gate and saves everybody. So fast forward to a couple months later, Dr. Owens has survived the entire ordeal and he has falsified a birth certificate that says Eleven is now Hopper's real daughter and that she can now lead a normal life. So that's basically it for season 2. If you haven't seen this yet, obviously I've just ruined a whole bunch of stuff for you, but it's still worth a watch because I didn't ruin everything. There's still a bunch of stuff in between all the major points that I've given that still make this very, very worth watching. And like I said, if you haven't seen this, go to Netflix, watch it now. You can do it in a day, 2 days, 3 days, whatever. If you have seen it, then obviously you know what I'm talking about. So now let's get into some of the questions that were raised. The first question, and really a superficial question, but it's something that I kept thinking about the entire season. Billy's hair. Did they really think that was a believable wig? It was just ridiculous and so completely fake. But all right, aside from that, 8. The girl that Eleven runs off to Chicago to see. Now, obviously, they both have powers, and they have different powers. So, if one is 8 and one is 11, then obviously there must be other children out there who have powers, or are at least survivors of the facility. I mean, there should be like 1 through 7 and 9 and 10 somewhere out there. Maybe they can touch on that in season 3, go a little more into detail, or even such a premise would make its own TV series, and I would totally 100% watch that. Another thing is Dustin's Demodog. Now, do these things actually become Demogorgons eventually, or are they just kind of a different species of the same group of creatures? A lot of the stuff in the Upside Down kind of has the whole predator mouth open thing, so it's entirely possible that they could just be separate species, but at the same time, we saw Dart go from like a little sluggy lizard thing and it grows legs and then it gets bigger and it eventually becomes a dog creature, so it could stand to reason that this thing could become a Demogorgon eventually. Okay, so in episode 8 is where they have to escape the facility that's overrun by Demodogs, and because of Bob, they're able to do so. Now, let me go through some backstory with Bob here, okay? Bob knows that Joyce and her family are kind of weird. There's rumors about them all over town. Bob says, I don't care. I like Joyce. I want to date Joyce. So Bob is dating Joyce. Bob literally, legitimately, truly cares for Joyce and Will and Jonathan. He doesn't ask questions. He does literally everything for them, and even goes so far as at the end when, he finally finds out the truth, because up until then, everybody just says that Will got lost in the woods in season 1 because they're not allowed to tell the truth. But once, they have to rescue Hopper, they have no choice but to tell Bob the truth. Bob finds out everything that's really happening, and instead of turning tail and splitting like most people would, Bob says, yeah, okay, I still like you guys. I want to be part of this family. Bob is the ultimate absolute good guy, and you feel that. You actually like Bob. And then Bob goes out to save the day because he's the only one who can, because he's the guy that knows the programming code for the computers. So Bob goes out to save the day, and you're sure that Bob is going to die. But Bob gets to the basement, reboots the power, reboots the computers, and of course, now we know Bob's going to die because he's done what he had to do. So, at the same time though, he's being guided back up He's dodging demodogs. He's hiding from them. He gets out the door. Literally out the door. He is this far from freedom. And boom, he gets nailed by a demodog and dies. Oh my god. That was so infuriating and just so well done. Oh, good guy Bob bites the dust. And I was bummed because, you know, I don't know. They just spent so much time building him up as a good guy. And then, you know, so when they do that, you expect him to die. And then they didn't kill him, but then they did kill him. And, yeah, well done. Well done. So one of the big questions is the Mind Flayer, the big thing from the Upside Down that Will's been battling with this whole time. At the very end, you know, they're all at this dance and they're dancing and they're having a good time and it looks like, you know, happy endings all around. And then it flips to the Upside Down and we see the Mind Flayer is standing above the school that they're currently in the real world. So I guess that leaves it open for maybe we're going to see it again in season 3 or maybe they're going to hold it back for some other time. I'm not entirely sure where they could go with season 3. Honestly, I hope they go with the other kids who have powers. I want to see some of that stuff. But at the same time, you know, they didn't actually kill the Mind Flayer. They only got it out of Will and closed it up back into the Upside Down. So I can see it coming back through, and that'd be pretty cool probably. But one of the things I thought was hilarious was Steve and Dustin kind of build this relationship, you know, almost like Steve becomes Dustin's big brother because, you know, Dustin is pining for Max, but Max has totally got it for Lucas. You know, Steve is heartbroken because Nancy broke up with him and she's now going with Jonathan, so they're both kind of, you know, broken-hearted together. And, you know, Steve starts offering advice to Dustin, especially with the hair, which is a funny scene and actually comes back later at the end right before the dance. So yeah, I mean, Steve actually turns out to be good guy Steve when I guess they were trying to make him out to be, you know, especially in season 1, he was kind of like the bad guy, you know. At the end of season 1, you kind of didn't want Nancy and Steve to end up together. You kind of thought that Jonathan and Nancy would be a better fit. And then, you know, in season 2, they kind of went with that. But at the same time, it just made Steve more of a good guy, and you like Steve more than you did in season 1. So, especially now that, you know, Dustin and Steve are kind of building this brother relationship, it kind of makes you like Steve a lot more than you should. Okay, so the last point, and it's not even a question, it's just an observation, and I want to know if you guys agree with me. So, you know, everybody is like 11, 11, 11. 11 is the star of the show. You know, Mike is the leader of the crew. But in reality, in my opinion, Dustin is the boss. I mean, it's not just because we share the same name, because we do, but I don't think the show could possibly be the same if it weren't for Dustin. He, like, definitely the comic relief. If you need one-liners or, you know, just he keeps everything, everybody wants to be serious and doing this and that, and he kind of ties everything together, gives you those moments to breathe in between tense scenes, and he can pack in the emotion. So yeah, I think Dustin is very quickly going to become the fan favorite, well over, at least over Mike, maybe not over 11, but definitely over Mike. So that's my review of Stranger Things Season 2. Let me know in the comments if you agree. Were you as heartbroken about Bob as I was? Do you feel bad about good guy Steve? And do you think that Dustin is slowly becoming the best character in the show? Be sure to like and subscribe. Hit the bell icon to be notified every time I upload. That's 2 videos a week, so there's plenty to watch. All my social media links, of course, are down in the description. And that's about it. So until next time, I'm Dustin. This was Horroritis. And as always, keep it creepy.